Hello learners, welcome to Operation Management. Today we are going to talk about Chapter 6, Capacity Planning and Control. Planning and control, the capacity planning and control. So two things that we are going to focus on are the market requirements and operation supplies. The market requirement is about the availability of product and services, while the operation supplies is the capacity to deliver the product and services. Okay, what is capacity? Actually, capacity is about the physical sense, means the scale of operation, how big or how large of the operation for the organization to supply or to deliver to the customer both tangible and intangible product or product and services. Okay, these may not reflect the operations processing capability. Why? Because sometimes processing capability is not the actual capacity that you can do, because of the demand and supply is not, it's fluctuated, or you cannot sell as much as you plan. Okay, so actually in operation management for planning control, we talking about time dimension, right? So like example, like 24,000 liters per day, or 10,000 calls per day, or even 57 patients per session. Okay, so the objectives of capacity and planning and control is appropriate amount of the capacity at any point in time that I will explain later in the next slide. Okay, the appropriateness, it's about costs, revenue, working capital, and service level. Why? If you can produce the product in a very high capacity, but you cannot control the suitable cost, what happens? It might exceed the your suitable cost, right? Of course, if you can lower down the suitable cost, that would be great. But you produce and exceed the actual cost, the appropriate cost, then you might lost, or you can lose your profit, right? Or also the revenue that it have to be concentrated when you do the planning, because if you out of plan, you might lose your revenue, or even you get lost, you lost in the business, also capital and service level. Okay, here the two axes is about output and time. You can see here the line of forecast demand. You forecast the demand of the customer or the consumers and your capability to sell. Here the line of current capacity. In this model, suppose if you are the factory, how are you going to manage the production? Do you want to do the capacity? You might want to plan the capacity above the forecast demand, or a little bit above forecast demand, or in the mean or average of the forecast demand. Or you can design the capacity in a straight line like this, and you can keep the stock to fill up when the demand is over your current your actual or capacity, right? there are many choices that you can decide. That's up to you. It all depends on how are you going to do that. And also there are many conditions that affect to how are you going to design the uh, the production or the plan. Here, cause of seasonality. When you produce any product, some product depends on the season. The season might be climatic, festive, behavioral, political, financial, or even social. Suppose if you produce a, a fruit can, right, and then you the fruit you can harvest only a few months in a year. How can you prepare? How will you prepare to harvest and to produce the fruit or if inventory? When you want to produce a canned fruit, you might be like a long maybe longan. You can produce. You have to harvest the fruit for all. You can have the time for only 3 months, and then you have to manage to harvest and keep the stocks for you to supply and to sell the product for whole over the year for a whole year. So how are you going to do that? So you might start from you forecast your sales, and then like maybe you forecast like you can produce like 1 million cans, right? 1 million cans. So 1 million cans, how many tons of fruit that you want to use? Suppose you want to use it for 1 million can, you might use 10,000 kg or 10 tons of fruit. So you have to harvest and stock the fruit during three months, right? And if that fruit cannot be kept in the frozen, so you have to keep in fridge, right? And then you manage to produce 1 million cans of the fruit, right? To in order to supply for whole year. So after you might take a month to produce 1 million can, then you might after you harvest the fruit for 10 tons, you manage it. You might keep in the fridge or in the freezer if you can. Depends on how long of the fruit can be kept in fridge or freezer, and then you manage to produce the fruit within 1 month. So after 1 month, you stock 1 million can to 1 million cans to sell for whole over the year. See, this is also one of the seasonal product that you can manage, or even festive. The New Year season or Christmas is a high season of the sales of the year. So you want to keep the product, or you want to keep to produce and keep the stock prior the festive season. But out of that festive season, the consumers or the demand consumption decrease. So what happened that on this festive product, you have to forecast some certain amount for the festive, and after that you might keep a low level stocks, that the stocks that the in our inventory. We will talk in the next slides. Okay. Behavioral in some month, suppose some months or some season, tourists uh, in a higher number of the tourists during especially in summer, right? Or in Thailand or Cambodia, maybe in Southeast Asia country, maybe in winter season for the traveling season. So in during that time you might need to uh, produce some winter clothes. But of course, in summer and rainy season, you might not want those winter clothes, right? Or even the umbrella. The high season of umbrella is already in raining seasons. Okay, this is the examples. Okay, here the demand fluctuation in for operations. In hotels, it's a tourist season, right? Woolen niche wear, it's about the season also, like winter. Of course, if you have like uh, in if you can produce in some product, if you suppose if you have only one market in here, you might see May and June, April, May, June, July, August is a very low demand, right? April, May, June, July is summer and autumn, end of autumn and beginning of summer. So the demand of the woolen knitwear, it might be very low during that season. But apart of those 4 months, like September to uh, March or even in February, you might have high demand. Okay, aluminum producer, in here you can see the demand is increasing month by month, maybe because of the festive season during the end of the year. Here the retail store, you can see in June, July, August is very low demand, right? Why? Because that time for US, for the States, it's tourist season, traveling season. Most of the people are not, they do not stay home. They might leave for overseas, like it's like Thailand or some any other places. So the demand during that time may decrease. Okay, here how capacity and demand are measured. Here the equation, right, for you to do to calculate. In here for utilization, when you produce or you in the production, you thinking about actual output, how much for the output or how many units during the for the actual output, and design capacity, how many uh, capacity or how much of the capacity that you can do. Suppose in here you can do actual output is just only 51 hours per week, but your design capacity is 168. So when after the calculation is beyond one, when you beyond one means the utilization that you do is too low. You can expand or uh, you can utilize the capacity too low, so you should do more. Okay, while efficiency, we're talking about how efficient that you can do that. The equation is about actual output, which is 57 in 51, sorry, 51 hours in here in this equation, in this uh, question, when effective capacity is 109 hours per week. Same, 51 divided by 109, so it means it's still below 1. So when you below 1 in efficiency, means you still cannot your production is not efficient enough, so you have to increase your actual output in this case. Okay, the way of reconciling capacity and demand, you can see in actual world, it's in I believe that normal machine or more normal production, the capacity in you might want to do the capacity in a straight line for all over the year, and you can keep the the margin or the gap between the stocks, and you can manage it, and you can keep the stock during the low demand to fill up the high during the high demand like this. In this strategy we call level capacity, while chase capacity means you lower your capacity, right, during the low demand and try to increase your capacity while you have higher demand. And demand management is you try to manage your demand from, suppose your demand like this, right? You try to uh, motivate the demand to fill up or to close to your capacity. And in this case, you can produce or you manufacture in the same capacity all over the year, but you try to manage by motivate the falling demand to back to close to the capacity, right? And then you try to fill up and try to lower down the demand during the capacity, during the higher demand seasons or time. And then in this case, you can manage demand in the while you do the same capacity. In this, and of course, in this way, you can have the same or close revenue, and it helps you to be very easy to manage the revenues in this model or strategy. How and how can manage the demand? You can motivate the demand to increase during the actual demand is too low, right? By promotion, like sales, any free samples or motivation, any promotion way or strategy that you can do to increase the falling demand like in during that time. Okay, the way of reconciling capacity, there are three ways like I just mentioned: just level capacity, chase demand, and demand management. The strategy that we do for level capacity is try to absorb demand, this, right? And then for chase demand, the strategy is adjust the output to match the demand, while the demand management is trying to change demand. Okay, in here, if you can adjust the output to match the demand, you can balance the to high the labor or the workers during the low seasons instead of fire them during the low season. Temporary labor you can have or you can fill up with a temporary labor instead of layoff if you use chase demand strategy. Overtime and short time you can balance it in any strategy and subcontract or third party work. In this strategy, you can use the subcontract to work for you instead of you lost uh, your what to say, how to say, your customers to the other people, right? Okay, here the chain demand I just mentioned it, right? And here you try to fill up the over demand, right? In into the during the fall demand in here, the lower demand like this, you try to fill up the demand, the lost demand in here. Okay, in inventory planning and control. Inventory demand of planning and control. Two things that we talk about: market and operations. The market, we require a quantity of the product and service at a particular of time, while operation supplies, we're talking about delivery of a quantity of product when required. Right in here, this the key operation equation, that what is inventory, that I will explain you later. Inventory necessary also. What are the disadvantages of holding inventory, or you keep the inventory, or you keep the stock? How much inventory should an operation hold? So how big or how large of the inventory that you should keep it. Of course, if you keep it too low, you lost it when the demand catch up in the higher demand. And of course, if you keep in another way, if you keep the stocks too much, and of course you lost a lot of things, like at least one thing that you lost is interest and also expiration of your product. When should an operation replenish its inventory? When? How can inventory be controlled? How you can control it? Okay, here you might be familiar with this model at the moment: input, transformation process, and output. Okay, in the transformation process, the rate of supply from input process, how big you supply, and then you come to inventory, you transform it, you can keep produce it, or even you can stock it. If you are a trader, you just you just stocked the product, right? You stock the product in a certain match or suitable quantity, and then you can supply it to demand of the consumers or customers. In here there are three inventory system. It's single stage, two stage, and multi-stage. The single stage, you might talk about, you might be a trader. You might have many suppliers, you stock it and you sell it. That's it. That just only what you do. But for two-stage inventory system, you have a central depot from suppliers, right? The supplier supply you the product, and you distribute to many distribution channel. Like if you're in Thailand, you might have a northern distribution channel, northeastern, eastern, or southern distribution center, and then you can do the sale operation after that. This is two stage. But what happens when you're multi-stage inventory? This might always, I have to use this word, always occur in the production. You have suppliers to input the stock, right? And then you put into the stage one for transformation process, and then you might have got a work in process product, right? And then it passed to stage two, to another factory, or to another station, right? And you in that station is still work in process, and then you send it to stage 3, 4, and 5 until the finished good stocks. Then you have a finished good stock, you can send it to the distribution channels or to the sale, depends on. Here a multi-echelon inventory system. You can see here when you try to produce a cloth or a shirt, you might have to start from a yarn producer, or you might start from a cloth manufacturer. But the cloth manufacturer anyway, if suppose in this way you are a garment manufacturer, you might order to the cloth manufacturer, or you might and then the cloth manufacturer order to the yarn producer to supply them the yarn, and then they got the cloth, they produce the cloth for you, and then they supply to your business, right, or to you. And then after you have a finished product, you supply it to, or you distribute to the regional warehouse, and then the regional warehouse supply to the retail store. Or even you can do supply, if you're a garment manufacturer, you can supply directly to the customer. That depends on how are you manage your product. Okay, here also the same for the paper. Here the inventory profile chart in the variation. Suppose here your average inventory. You don't know inventory, but your average inventory at the moment, but you know the order quantity always fluctuated like this, right? It's very fluctuation, the demand. So what happened, you can see here the gap between here. You might try to keep the average inventory, because during this time you might when they have the demand in this time, right? And sorry, when you have the inventory in these, you can keep inventory and you fill up during the short of the demand like this, or during the also the same in the gap between the others here. So in this way, you can divide it very easy graph, but actually in the world there is not such a graph or model like this that order quantity, right? So it depends on how are you going to set and order the quantity and order. In suppose in here, when you have a demand, when you have demand in sorry, I'm sorry, I mixed up with the other graph. In here, I restart from this model. This model, when you feel you have an inventory level like this, like at this point, you might set the inventory that you will order the product to keep the stock at this level. Why? Because there might be some demand when they try to order the product, right? And after they order the product, your stock will be lower, right, or decrease up to down. So you try to keep the average inventory like this, right? So you will have the inventory gap, the surplus inventory here to fill up when they order the the product here. Okay, so also the same in every season here. Okay, in here in here Q is quantity, order quantity, by D is demand rate. So you will find out the correction of the time and the demand and the quantity. Okay. In here you can, for this model, it divide the inventory to two parts: the average inventory, right, and average for plan A, and average inventory for plan B. In here, suppose you want to, for this model, you divide the inventory order to two plans. You might order to fill up the if you have a plan B, right, you can order to fill up if the demand during the subs during the short time, right, in here during this time you can order up, you can manage the plan at the point that when the quantity or the stocks lower down to 100. In this case, you can average the inventory for 50. But for plan A, average inventory for plan A is 200. While you try when the stocks in the to when the time reach this, you can see in this during this time is 4 months, right? So during 4 months, during first 3 months, you might manage in a short term in a small order to stocks, right? And for the for the third month, because 0.4, so the fourth month, you just order for you just order 200 up to fill up the quantity, because you know that during that time the order from the customer will be higher than actual. Okay, here the traditional view, this is what we most of the business use. They use the total cost and holding cost and order cost to use the break-even point to order the economic quantity. suppose here the order cost is at this point is about 100 baht, and holding cost is about 100 baht. So it's at the break-even point is here, and then the order quantity every time is 200. This is what we use with this theory we use for when you're concerned for the cost and the order quantity. Okay, and that one used to maximize or utilize the cost. Here, inventory planning allowing for shortage is here. You will order only when you're short. So it is the timeline, right? And it's inventory level. So when you reach this point, you just order to fill up. This case can be used only when your suppliers are very effective and very quick deliver it, and that time it's they can supply you very fast service. For the reorder point, here also another strategy that we can use. You can see here the inventory level is about 400, and we set the break-even point here that the odd versus the order lead time. The lead time is about 2 months, right? Or two. Suppose in this week about 2 weeks. Sorry. And then this week, you can straight the line here. You can draw the line here, and at this point, the order lead time for two weeks. Then inventory level that you will reorder it at 200. Okay. Here is a Pareto curve. The Pareto theory, we're talking about 80-20. Here they believe that 20%, when every 20% of the stocks is used, you just order it to fill up the stocks. For me, I won't believe this theory. I don't much believe this theory. Here, it designed with two theory. It's called two-bean system and three-bean system. Two-bean system talking about when they count the item being used, and after they being used, they set up a reorder level plus safety inventory, right? And at that time, they just reorder it. So, but in this, you have to know that you have to know the time, and that the time is not, how to say, the time is not a much matter for you to concern that. So, and because you already have a safety inventory here, and you believe that the supplier can supply you in time, so in this case you can reorder it when some unit of the product is used. For three-bean system, it's the same with, it's quite similar to two-bean system, but it just separate with the reorder level and safety inventory. This bean system, of course, if you have a space enough, if you have the space enough, you can use this system, and it divided and it's very safe for you to divide the reorder level and safety inventory out separated. Okay, thank you very much for that's it for chapter 6. If you have any question, don't forget to bring it to the class and we will discuss in class. See you in class.